Well, welcome. We're so glad you're here. My name is Mark, and this is Trinity Church. If you're new here, we would love to meet you. We have a table in the back. If you're wanting to know more, how can I get connected here? How could I get in a group that even Cameron talked about, or just get connected in any way, shape, or form? We would love to tell you there's going to be welcome people at the back at the table to help you with that. Our torch kids can head back. We are now getting to the very end of a series that we've been in, teaching through the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount, which is a sermon that Jesus gave while he walked the earth. And I'm going to read to you a passage from that, and then we're going to get into it. We are in Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 27. That passage will be on the screen behind me. And this is Jesus' closing remarks of the Sermon on the Mount. So if you've been with us here for a few months now, here it is. This is the conclusion of the sermon. And then next week we're going to do one more talk on the sermon, really wrapping it up. And then we're going to move on to book of Ephesians, which will be really fun. So Matthew 7:24. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house. But it did not fall, because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it. This is the word of the Lord. So Sermon on the Mount, where have we gone and where have we come in this amazing sermon that Jesus gave? Jesus here is wrapping this thing up by talking about wisdom, because what has the Sermon on the Mount been about? It's been the King of the universe, the maker of everything, giving you his version of what is the wise life. What does a wise life look like that's going to bring about human flourishing for them and others around them? Like it's almost as if you were to have a president to give their inaugural speech and say, here's what I think we should do to make this country a better place. Here's King Jesus submitting to the people, submitting to us. Here is the plan from the Creator, the design of the universe. For this world to be a better place, here's how to live. Here's what I'm submitting to you. So a wise person lives this way. An unwise person doesn't live this way. It's as if Jesus is coming along and he's confronting you. And he's saying, hey, I am the King. I want you to follow me. Come, follow me. Let me show you how to live. Walk with me. Be like me, and you will experience life. But he takes it further than like maybe some other teachers might take that. A random teacher, anyone on YouTube or whatever, or a TED Talk, might give you some wisdom for life, right? But they're giving it as kind of like an option. Like, here's one option. The fascinating thing about Jesus in this passage that we see here, he's taking it further. He's taking it a lot further. And as we saw last week, he's saying, no, hear me out. Like, I am the designer of the cosmos. Like, the world is built a certain way. You are built a certain way. Wisdom is like, Proverbs 1 and 2, is built into the fabric of creation. So I'm not just saying, hey, do these things and then you'll live. No, he's saying, no, you do them and you will live. And if you don't do them, if you disobey them, if you don't obey me, what I'm saying, no, you will be destroyed. Like there's destruction on the other side of disobedience to me. Because you're going against the very fabric of creation by how you live in your relationships and how you talk to people and everything. I mean, the Sermon on the Mount is not just, hey, here's some teachings, so here's some wise living. It's wise living that's built into the fabric of creation, so if you do them, you will live. If you don't, you will be like a house that's been built on sand, and when suffering comes, you're going to collapse. And ultimately, at the end of time, as we saw last week at Judgment Day, you will collapse for all of eternity. So, where are we going with this? A wise person. What's a wise person? At the end of the Sermon on the Mount. A wise person, one, listens to Jesus. A wise person listens to Jesus. A wise person obeys Jesus. A wise person is prepared for the storms of life. And a wise person gives life to others. They are a person of flourishing. So, first point, a wise person listens to Jesus. He's pretty clear here. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man. Hearing the words of Jesus and listening to his words is instrumental in being a person of wisdom. Last week we saw that he pointed out you can be a person that says a certain thing, but you don't do it. Here he's saying you could hear him and not do it. A wise person hears, and wisdom is not just knowing information. It's doing things. It's what you do with your life. That's a wise person. Let's step back a minute and talk about listening and hearing, if we're on the subject of hearing. Here's a reality. A reality is that everyone is a hearer. Everyone is a listener. Everyone is listening to things. We're all listening. We're all taking in information. We're taking in teaching. We're all being formed and shaped and discipled by some teaching, by some teacher. We're all being formed. We're all being discipled. We're all being shaped by something out there, by some line of thought, by some theory, by some teaching, some guru, something. We are all being formed. Here's a couple realities. Everyone is a follower. We're all followers. No one comes into the world alone. All of our first identity is what? Child, baby, infant, being formed from the beginning. And that hasn't changed. We're still being formed. That is the human condition. No one is self-made. No one is just like this island self-made person who just no, we have teachers, we have influences. All of our life we've been formed and shaped. We're all being discipled by someone or something. We're all abiding in and resting in our life in something. No one is unaffected by their environment. No one is unaffected by their environment. No one is a complete original. There's no complete original out there. Jesus is coming along, and he knows this, and he's, in a sense, confronting us, saying, hey, everyone's following something. Follow me. Why? Because I made you, and I love you more than anyone else does, and I have the path to life. Are you hearing Jesus? It's just this question. Who are you being discipled by? Who do you spend the most time listening to get wisdom for life? Or viewpoints for life? Or whatever? We have a responsibility to take on Jesus as our ultimate teacher. We have a responsibility, we have agency to take on Jesus as our ultimate teacher. The problem with taking on anything other than Jesus as our teacher is culture, philosophies, trends, theories, they're all always changing. What they might tell you right now was different 10 years ago. Every generation or two, whatever was being taught becomes obsolete. Now there's something new. The fascinating thing about this, you could go to the Bible Museum in D.C. right now and see that this book we have right now is the same book we had 2,000 years ago. I've seen it. I've seen manuscripts that are almost 2,000 years old that are the same exact thing in the Greek and the Hebrew. This book lasts. What we believe about it as Christians is that all flesh is like grass, and all its glory is like the flowers of the field. The flowers fall, the grass withers, but the word of the Lord stands forever. What you have in the teachings of Jesus is a word that's been true since the foundation of the world. It's built into the fabric of all of creation. You have no better form of wisdom than what is in this book. When we say we're supposed to hear the wisdom, here's another way to look at it. What exactly do we mean by that? On a large scale level, part of what Jesus is giving us in his word is the story of the world. The true story of the world. A wise person learns to live in the true story of the world. Leslie Newbigin was a missionary to some Hindu people, and he at one point gave the Bible to a Hindu priest who had not read it yet, and he read it, and he came back, and his summary was fascinating and I think spot on. He said, this is an account of the true story of the world. Now, he wasn't saying that he necessarily believed in it, but his observation was, this is where we come from, this is all the plot, and this is the end of everything. This is the true story of the world. Is that what you're telling me? He's like, yes, that's a good summary. Think about it like this. Imagine if, you're familiar with the Chronicles of Narnia, right? C.S. Lewis, Chronicles of Narnia. Imagine if, there's 7 books. Imagine if they found an 8th book of the Chronicles of Narnia. A lost book that has not been found yet. I mean, I personally would be so pumped by that. But imagine if they found this manuscript that C.S. Lewis had written in his attic or something, and they take the manuscript and they're looking at it and they're reading it and they're saying, oh wait, it's missing the 9th chapter. The 9th chapter is missing. What would they do? Well, what they probably, I hope they would do, is get together some scholars, some C.S. Lewis scholars, some people, big fans, maybe like some insignificant pastor like myself, to be on a team, to figure out, like, what would that 9th chapter be, And so then what would you do to fill in the gap? You would read the book. You would read the story from start to finish. You would look at all of the whole narrative of the Chronicles of Narnia. You would look at C.S. Lewis and all of his writings. Here's what you would do. To fill in the gap, you have to know, what story is it a part of? Guys, hear me out. How we live our life right now is shaped by, what story are we a part of? What story are we a part of? Where do we come from? What's our origin? What's the plot? Where is this thing going? That is how you're going to live your life. Part of what Jesus is submitting to us in his word, when he says, hey, you do this, is, hey, know the story of the Bible and live in it, because you're living in some story and you're going to make your decisions based on what story you are a part of. Let me explain a little more. When I was on a mission trip to China, and I was talking with some youth, some teenagers in China, probably 15 years ago, they had no concept of the Creator God that you're familiar with in the Bible. None. Like, everything we were telling them about Jesus and God in the Bible, the first thing, their view of the origin story was, they said the way they would explain is rocks. Rocks came together. That's where we come from. We come from rocks. We come from things in space colliding. That is where we come from, an impersonal force. And where are we going? When you die, nothing. Nothing. That's it. You're just done. Oblivion. If that's the story you live in, how will you live out your life? How will that affect how you live day to day? Well, what they would say is, how do you live day to day? You do what your authorities tell you to do, but really, teenagers, you do whatever you can get away with. You do what your authorities tell you to do as long as you can just get away with it. There's no moral structure. There's no reason behind anything. Life is meaningless. What's the point? You'll be dead and forgotten forever. Our culture in Austin, what's the story that our culture in this city is submitting to us? Well, you might see maybe a phrase at an elementary school, and it might say, live your truth. Live your truth. Now, let's back up and think about this for a second. Live your truth. Truth is whatever you want it to be. Truth is whatever you want it to be. So if Jesus is your truth, great. If Allah is your truth, great. If nothing is your truth, great. If blah, blah, blah is your truth, whatever your truth is, great, great, great. That's right. Everybody's got their own truth. What this is resulting in is just nihilism. Just nihilism. The growing consensus among the next generation is that's meaningless. Who cares? Like, obviously, if you say God is this and you say God is something different, and you say God is this, it's not real. We're talking fairy tales here, people. Things can't be totally different and contradictory and still coexist. That's meaningless. So the growing consensus is a stoic nihilism that's just like, no, there's nothing that's going to happen to you when you die. Live how you want. Have as much fun as you can now. What's the point? It's so sad. There's philosopher, biologist like Michael Ruse. Here's what he says. Ethics, as we understand it, is an illusion, fobbed off on us by our genes to get us to cooperate. The growing narrative is we come from nothing, just accidents. We're going to nothing. Ethics, morals, doing right and wrong, that's just neurological responses. We're just like machines that are just responding to neurological stimuli. Now, if that's the case, if that's the story, on one hand, think about how inconsistent this is. You could go back to this guy and say, okay, you're just a machine that's responding neurologically to your environment. Well, then why should you get any credit for your book that you wrote? You're just a neurological response. If someone robs your house, is it their fault? They're just responding neurologically to their environment. No, you see, where it goes is no one's at fault. We're all just products of our causality environments, just cause and effect. There's no meaning, true meaning to your life. What we would submit is the story of the Bible, the true story of the world. The true story of the world is that where we come from, guys, where we come from is a loving God who created us unique, each of us unique and equal, to experience and represent his goodness and beauty. But what went wrong with the world? Obviously things got messed up. What went wrong with the world? We sinned and rebelled against the King. We sinned and rebelled against the King. In the story of the world, we actually start out on the side of the bad guys. We're the ones in need of redemption to be saved. What did God do to make things right? God's Son, the Prince, went on a rescue mission to save us by sacrificing his life for us. What are all the best movies and stories about? Some hero redeeming others by sacrificing their life. Where do we get that narrative from? The Bible. We get it from the Bible. How are we made right? By believing in the Son and coming under his loving lordship. This is the story. Scholars now, I think it's safe to say, easy to say, this is the narrative, the story of the world that has been making the world a better place for 2,000 years. The hospitals we have, the education systems we have, the judicial systems that we have, the care for the poor that we have, this idea that people are made equal. Where did all that come from? That came from the Christian narrative. Look at Rome before Christ. Jacked up place. You don't want to go back there. None of that stuff that I just described was anywhere near existence. The Jesus movement has brought all of that to bear upon this world. And it's not just we should live in this narrative because it makes the world a better place. That is part of it, but because it's true. Jesus came, he died, he rose again. And there is enormous amount of evidence to see him as a historical figure who really did that. He is the true story. A wise person listens to Jesus. A wise person listens to Jesus because he is the author of life and he is the author of the story. Number 2, a wise person obeys Jesus. Look at what verse 24 says. He does them. He does them. He does Jesus' words. He or she has seen Jesus in such a way that they realize he's the King and I must obey him. He's the King and I must obey him. Why? Jesus says, if you obey my words, not just know them, but obey them, you are building your life on the rock. You are building a foundation that is strong. In the Sermon on the Plain, the same sermon in a different form, Luke 6:48, he specifies that you dig down deep, the foundation. Dig down deep, the foundation to build it. Foundation building nowadays, we've got trucks and cement and all that back. You needed a shovel. You needed to dig. You had to dig down, get to the rock, and then build your house on this rock. Part of the implication here is when he says this, everybody there knows this is hard work. This requires day by day practice and discipline and doing things, practices, implementing certain practices into your life. You know, being in the Word daily, learning prayer daily, you know, devotion to community daily. Like there's just these daily rhythms. Have you guys ever tried digging a hole? You know, you get a shovel. We had this mound in our backyard when we first moved into the house we live in now. Is this mound is probably like, you know, this high from where the ground should be, and it sloped down in different directions. And one day I got a shovel. In my mind I thought, oh, this will be like our project, you know? 5 hours later, I'm like, have I done anything? Like these movies where you dig a grave in like 30 minutes. No, that would take like weeks to do that. The plot's ruined by real digging. The implication here is that godliness, like building this foundation requires, like think back on the Sermon on the Mount, you know? He's talking about prayer. He's talking about, you know, all these different aspects of our walk with Jesus. It requires this day in, day out, ordinary stuff, practicing the rhythms that Jesus submits to us, and the day in, day out. And when we do this, when we make our life about not just like, oh, Christianity is my thing on Sunday, or Christianity is my thing on Sunday, and when I go to a small group, you know. No, it's like you wake up in the morning and it's learning this practice of like, hey, Jesus, you're my king. What do you have for me today? And learning to talk to him and making him a part of your everyday movement. That's what we need. And that's actually, you hear that, wow, that may be daunting. Like think about Jesus all the time. Consider this, you're already thinking about something else all the time. Why not make it something better? Your maker who's with you, who's right there looking at you, loving you, wanting to cause your life to flourish. We learn to turn to him and walk with him. So number 2, a wise person obeys Jesus and comes under his lordship. Number 3, a wise person is prepared for the storms of life. Notice verse 25, the rain fell, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. What's fascinating is when you have these two different houses, one house is built on the rock, the other is built on sand. What does Jesus assume is true about both houses? They both get hit with the storm. They both get hit with the storm. Choosing to follow Jesus is not, oh, now I'm escaping suffering, you know? No, he's the way through it. I would say he's the only way through it. The only good way through it is with him. Suffering is gonna hit. Building your life on the rock, his teaching and his ways, gives you the stability to get through the suffering in healthy ways. Think about losses and crisis. When just crisis hits, maybe massive health issues, loss of job, loss of loved ones, loss of relationship. Jesus is saying the word, this book, the word, the more you learn to make this not just what you know, but what you do, you will be prepared for those seasons. It doesn't mean that you're just going to be happy-go-lucky through them. It's going to hurt. But this is our anchor to get through the storm. This is our rock and foundation so the house doesn't collapse. I was thinking about just like practically what does this look like? Well, you know, one of the things I thought of this week is just the Psalms. Like the more you know the Psalms, like just reading through the Psalms. The past year I've been using the Psalms as every morning I'll just be in a different Psalm. And one of the things has been any season of life really, any kind of suffering, any kind of, it's all in there. It's like, here's an example that God has given us of, oh, what do you pray what do you say to him when you're in this hard situation? And it's like a guidebook. I mean, it's amazing how it helps me personally. Like it actually helps me. It's not just to know something, it helps you through the storms of life. You know, another example would be some suffering in our life is catastrophic decisions that we make. Failures. Decisions that you look back on and are like, oh man, I wish I hadn't have done that. Regret. Things you're doing now that you need to repent of and turn from, that are causing suffering in your life and that could cause a house collapse. Things like affairs, broken relationships with family and friends. Let's say embezzlement. These big catastrophic things that happen, I just want to tell you, they don't just happen like overnight. No, it's the building of a life. You are making all kinds of little decisions day in, day out that lead to potential catastrophic outcomes. I was meeting with a guy several years back, someone you don't know, different church, and he hit me with this intense information that his wife had caught him in an affair. I remember sitting there and he's telling me the story of the event and his wife catching with photos on phones and information that she now knew he was in an affair. And I remember asking him, hey, where did this start? Where did this start? And he began to tell me about like the first event, like the day. And something in me was like, wait, no, further back. When did you first start telling lies? When did you first, way back over here, start shading the truth and cheating in the little ways? You see, big catastrophic decisions are not just, here I go, I'm walking along my day and I'm a good guy, and then boom, I make a big mistake. No, it's the little lies, the little cheatings, the little things, the foundation that you're building with your life right now. Those are the things that cause the destruction. It's the person who gets through the storm is the one who's like, Jesus is my king, and daily I'm going to try to walk, and I'm going to fail and mess up along the way, but I'm going to walk with him and walk in community with his people and be real about my sin and be honest and seek him and learn his word, because there's life and flourishing. I was walking through Nordstrom yesterday with my two boys after Haddon's basketball game. We just went to the mall, and I like going, that's where I like to park and go through there. Not that I ever buy anything there, but I was walking through Nordstrom's, and it's not bad to buy stuff there. I just can't afford it. But here we are walking through Nordstrom's, and I remember this story, and there was this story of years ago. Nordstrom apparently has this like epic return policy. Little insider information here. And there's a story about a guy in Ohio who brought a tire to a tire shop, but the tire shop had been torn down, and a Nordstrom had been built on top of it. And so he just decided, this is a story, he walked into Nordstrom's with his tire, and he was like, hey, can I get a return here on this tire? Because this is where I got it. And they were like, okay. And so they gave him store credit for this tire. That's amazing. So I remember hearing that. This was a few years ago. I heard that story, and I was like, have I bought anything from there? And I went in my closet, and I was like, these shoes, I got these shoes from here. I think it was like a year ago. And they were all messed up. And they were kind of broken. I'm like, these shoes aren't very good. I'm going to take these, but these should not be this torn up. I haven't worn them that much. So, I don't do this all the time. But I walk into Nordstrom, and I walk into the shoe thing. I'm just going to see what's going to happen here. So I walk up, I'm like, hey, I got these shoes, like a year ago. They're pretty torn up. Like, can I get like a discount on some other shoes? I'm just asking, And the guy's like, sure, let me look. And so he's like, what's your name? Looks me up. I don't have a receipt, but he's able to find me somehow when I bought these. And he's on the computer, and his head goes like this. When someone's head goes like that, that's not good. So he's like, turns his head like, huh. And he's like, you got these shoes 4 years ago. And I was like, no, it wasn't 4. No, what? Are you serious? 4 years ago? And then I'm just like, so what, what's the return policy? I mean, it is what it is, let's just figure this out, and so he's just like, really, man? And then he's like, all right, here, I can give you $40 credit. And I was like, yes, So I got a $40 credit. Now, why do I just tell you that wild, crazy story? Here's the deal. I'm going to turn this around. Here we go. This story, it's kind of amazing. You can bring almost anything from your past, and you bring it, and you get something in return. You get this value back. It's like you take this old thing, and you bring it, and it's made new. Jesus, here's what I believe. Jesus and his church. Jesus is for sure. The church is intended to be and have the ultimate return policy. Like, I'm serious. Whatever it is in your past, this is cheesy, I know, but whatever like dirty tire you have from your past, Jesus has wisdom for you. Like, remember the Sermon on the Mount. Like, as we were looking through the Sermon on the Mount, so many detailed categories of the everyday things of life. It covers all of it. Whatever it is from your past, whatever it is from your present, you can bring anything to him, anything to Jesus. And he's going to take it and heal it and make it better if you go his way, if you submit it to him. There's no thing that you might be sitting here right now, I'm so ashamed of this thing, there's no way I'm telling anybody about that. Man, that might be the very thing you need to get real about, because Jesus has healing power to change you and make you new and give you a new pair of shoes. All right, so last point. A wise person gives life to others. And we're almost done here, guys, but what is the why behind all this? Let's back up to the whole beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. The whole beginning of the Sermon on the Mount. Y'all remember? It was human flourishing. Guys, this is how people flourish. The why behind hearing Jesus, obeying Jesus, responding to Jesus, following him. He's saying, hey, you, follow me. I'm still alive. I can see you. Come follow me. Make me your teacher. Why? Human flourishing, not just for you, but for others. It's not just for you, it's for others. He wants this thing to spread. He wants this thing to spread beyond you to your wife, your kids, your family, your friends, your coworkers. His way, permeating this whole creation. That is what he is after. You see, a house, what's a house? A house built on a rock. What is a house? It's a safe place. It's a place of life. It's a place of family. It's a place where you eat and stay alive. It's the place where stories are told. It's the place where you pass on truth and stuff to your kids so that they one day will have a house, hopefully, and do the same thing for others. A house is a place of life-giving. He wants you to build a strong foundation for your house, and no matter where you are, you can do that now for other people. I really believe if you don't get this, the church never really makes any sense. The church starts really making sense when you see the reason you come here today is not just for you, it's for others. Like when you sing, it's not just for you. Like you're singing out loud. Why? So other people hear it and other people are impacted by it. You go to a group. Why? It's for others. It's not just for you. Like if you just went for you, you probably over time would not go. A small group is for you to go and listen to other people's stories, tell your stories. It's a community. It's not just for you. Giving financially, denying yourself, reading your Bible, prayer, all of it. What's it for? It's not just for you. It's for others. I was remembering a conversation I was having with a guy back when I did singles ministry, and he had never been to church. Never been to Christian church. And someone invited him, and he found his way to this singles ministry that we had. And he didn't know what was going on. What are you guys singing? What was happening? And so I remember meeting with him, a few weeks after he had been involved, and we're sitting there having lunch, and he had been to one of the small groups. And I remember asking him, like, what was that like for you, going to that? And he was like, man, it's weird. He's like, I remember him saying, he's like, every environment I'm in is competitive. Every environment I'm in is competitive. Everybody's competing, measuring themselves, comparing themselves, trying to get ahead of one another. But I'm in this group, and it's like people are like sharing their weakness, and people are like caring for one another, and the whole competitive thing was like not there. It's like people were just actually caring for one another and like sharing like failures. Like, who does that, you know? I think our culture shares failures and weaknesses and authentic. But for this guy, it was new. It was different. It was life-giving. A few weeks later, he had professed faith in Christ, or several weeks later, and was getting baptized. And just to see the transformation that can happen with someone when they're able to see in a community people in a messy way living out, following Jesus, seeing that they're not just there for them, they're there for others. They're there for other people. Like especially your kids, like when you bring your kids here on Sunday or any kind of church thing, like it's very important to tell your kids, this is not just for you, this is for others. Your presence here impacts others. The reason you're not a total distracting crazy is, hey, try to chill it out so that you can be there to help other people see Jesus, you know? Little kids need help. They're messy. I'm going to end with this story. There's a crazy story in Mark chapter 5. In Mark chapter 5, Jesus is on a boat and he's coming up to a shore. When he gets off the shore, he's walking up to this village with his disciples. And there is an infamous man there. And off the shore, there's tombs. It's a picture of death. There are tombs, and there is a man living in the tombs, and he's without clothes. And the story says that he's possessed by demons. So wherever you're at with the spiritual realm, they claim this guy had demons. At least he claimed he had demons. And he sees Jesus, and he's running around like a crazy man, and he runs up to Jesus, and the demons know who Jesus is. And the man falls on his face before Jesus, and he says, "What have you to do with me, Son of the Most High God? What have you to do with me, Son of the Most High God?" And he explains that his name is Legion, because he's not just one demon, he's many. He's got many demons inside of him, this guy. He's in torment. He's been cutting himself, torturing himself, a picture of just death, isolation, and destruction. But he comes to Jesus. Then the demons ask a really bizarre question. It's like, who makes this stuff up? This is what they said happened. He says, the demons asked Jesus, can you send us into the pigs over there on the cliff? So there's a farmer over there, and he's got all of his pig farm up on this cliff, grazing on the grass and whatever. And the demons are like, can you send me over the demons, can we send us over there to the pigs? So Jesus gives the demons permission to go into the pigs. And so off they go into the pigs, and then they start running and run off the side of the cliff and die in the water. Bizarre story. What is happening in this story? Well, after that happens, the man is healed. Jesus has healed this man. He's sent the demons away. He comes over and he wants to follow Jesus. So really interesting thing. Two different characters here. You have the crowd and you have the man who had just been, exorcised. The crowd, because the pigs went off the cliff, they run over to Jesus and they say, "Get out of here. We don't want you here. You just ruined our business." They were not willing for their business to suffer financially with Jesus around. I had a friend who was a missionary over in Africa, and he told this story to this tribe. And when they heard this story, they were fascinated because he said they started wrestling with, okay, if we have this Jesus character as a part of our community, is he gonna, are our crops and everything subject to failure? Like, could he ruin our businesses? They had to wrestle with that. It's an interesting take on the story. But that's what happened. They wanted Jesus out. You see, here's what happened with the crowd. Jesus brought a storm to their life. He brought a storm. He is the one who orchestrated a storm of their business getting destroyed. And they wanted Jesus gone. They wanted Jesus gone. See, the reality here is you got to wonder if they had been grounded in the Word, if they knew the Word and they saw the signs that Jesus was the Messiah, that ultimately, yes, he may disrupt their business in the short term, but in the long term, he is the answer to all of their problems. If they had been grounded in the Word, would they have lasted through the storm? I think the implication is yes, but they didn't know the Word. They missed the signs. They kicked him out. They didn't want him there. And the outcome was worse than if they had had their pigs there with them. Better to have Jesus with no pigs than no Jesus with pigs. The demon-possessed guy who had been exorcised, he comes up to Jesus and he says, "Can I go with you?" And Jesus has a really interesting answer. He says, "No. For you, I want you to go home. The best thing for you is to go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." See, this guy, what he knew his friends needed, what he knew he needed was to probably go home to get cleaned up, probably, get a job and be a normal contributor to society since you've been living out here in the tombs. But ultimately, go tell your friends about me. Go tell them about me. Tell the story. Tell the story about how I was merciful to you. The Lord has been merciful to you. Go and tell them what the Lord has done for you. You see, a person who's encountered Jesus, it's like the automatic response should be, wow, I got to tell other people what has happened here. The God of the universe has been merciful to me, a sinner. And he loves me, not because of me, but because of him. And that's that's the story, that's the good news that brings renewal to people's lives, that brings renewal to families, that brings renewal to communities. Guys, the Sermon on the Mount, it's our King, the King of the world. He's coming to you, and he is confronting you with, you are following some teaching. You are following something. Come, follow me. He's inviting you to follow him, to embrace his mercy, to live in his life. There's nothing better than Jesus. He is the answer. He is what we were made for. All of history accumulates in him. He is the center of the story. Whatever you are going through right now, like whatever worries, whatever fears, whatever depressions or anxieties or things, man, ultimately, without Christ, what hope do we have? He is the hope, now and for eternity. Guys, one of the ways that we know that we can trust him is by looking at what he has done on the cross, of his cross and his resurrection. We're about to take of the Lord's Supper. And the Lord's Supper, what is that about? That is about how God Almighty, as I mentioned before, he came to rescue us. We're rebels. He came to rescue us. We've sinned against him. And even though we're his enemies and act like he's a tyrant, even though he's perfect and good, he still went to a cross and died in our place. That's the rescue mission he went on. And so when we come to take of the cup and the bread, this is a tangible reminder that the God of the universe, the creator and the maker, even though we have failed and rebelled, he took our failure and our rebellion upon himself on the cross. And in him, there is total forgiveness, total love, total acceptance, no matter what you have done. It's total and free because he paid the price. So come and take of this cup and this bread and enjoy him for what he has done. We have wine on the left, wine on the right, grape juice on the left. I always get that confused. And we have bread up here. We'll take it and dip it for you. You come and take it. Close your eyes. Let me pray, and we'll do this. Lord, thank you for your good gift of Jesus. Thank you that he came as our teacher to give us wisdom and life. We pray, Lord, that you would open our eyes to see him in a way that would just cause us to want to follow him because he's worthy of it. He is worthy of following. And following him is definitely what is best for us. So please, Lord, let this meal be filled with your glory and fill our hearts with joy in you. In your name we pray. Amen.